Hi, this is Jacqueline here with the GROW program. I notice a lot of times when people are out walking or jogging, they have earphones in their ear. They listening to music. But what you need to do is meditate on the Lord. You don't need music. Just meditate on the positive. Meditate to the good. Think positive on a situation. See, because we got to be careful of this music that we putting in our spirit. Different things, telling us to do different things, telling us how to act. Sometimes a lot of people listen to books, but I think we done got away to just from meditate. I mean, truly meditating. That's how you meditate on the Lord. I mean, as a kid, I love books. I love how the bookmobile smell. I love when the bookmobile came around. I just wanted to go in there and touch the books. Even when we didn't have money for me to buy a book, I love books. And a lot of my pictures as a kid of me with a book in my hand. I read about a lot of the places where my podcast is not being heard at. I read about the different cultures and the different people, and I hope one day that I would be able to visit, and I just may. But the lands were beautiful, and it was a long time ago. Those were encyclopedias that we had, and I used to read those over and over again because it used to reading would take me away. But now I know the Lord, and the Lord takes me away, because I don't focus on chaos, negativity, and drama. And I didn't then, that's why I would get into the books and take me away different places and read about different foods and I would just go away in a book. I would. And then I also like to draw. I used to draw, portraits. I told you I drew a portrait of Lincoln. Something pushed me to do that as a child, to draw a picture of Lincoln, And I remember very clearly, I remember going to Springfield. I was very young. It was a field trip. And we went to Springfield. And I just remember walking around, just being kind of in awe, but not knowing why I was in awe. I didn't know why. I enjoyed that trip more than I did Six Flags, more than I did going, anywhere. That was a very memorable trip to me, and I was very young. I can't even tell you what grade I was in, but I can tell you, I remember that tour of the Lincoln buildings and the museum and the cabin. I remember all of that. And I was young. So yeah, it's certain things that do take you away from the chaos, negativity, and drama, but you have to remember, as you wanting to get away, to meditate on the Lord. Remember that God is there, and remember to hold on to God's unchanging hand. Remember that picture of the hand in the cloud. I mean, it's amazing. I just snapped it and zoomed in on it, and that's what I saw. It looked like somebody riding on the arm of the Lord. So just focus on that. Anything positive, just begin to focus on the positive. When, like I said, when you get on Facebook, begin to say something nice to somebody on Facebook. Begin to eliminate that chaos. The stuff they put on there and share around, the fights and the drama and all this different stuff. We ain't got time to be sitting up wasting on TikTok. TikTok serious. That's why that's a good name for it, because you're going to sit there and waste a whole lot of time looking at all. I mean, and it's some funny stuff. Somebody tried to get me, to start watching TikTok. And I got caught up in a couple of them videos. I really like the one with the man in the ocean spray. I like that, but I don't have time. I have to meditate on the Lord. I have to think about overcoming oppression. I have to think about what I'm going to say to somebody that may help them. I have to think about what I'm going to say tomorrow, how I'm going to keep growing. So, see, I don't have time for foolishness. I really don't. I don't have time for TV. I turn it on there, but I turn the sound down. See, I glance over there and see what they talking about, on the news, but I don't listen to it. Besides what happened during this capital time, and now I done turned away from it because see, my focus got to get back on the Lord. It's got to get back on the Lord. So, I can't focus on this chaos, negativity, and drama. I have to do the will of God. I have to grow. And I was thinking on that this morning, and we go through our periods of sadness. We go through our periods of discouragement. But we have to pick ourselves up because I'm going to tell you something. Even as we sit holding our heads down, we got to remember this. Nothing defeats royalty. You are royalty. You are king and a queen. You're a descendant of royalty. So, and nothing defeats royalty. You are not a rebel, and this is a battle that we in. Life is a battle. It's a battle of good and evil. All these different things that we go through, these trials and tribulations, it's a battle. And you got to overcome it. You got to come out of it. Even drug addiction, that's a battle. And that's oppression. And you can overcome it because God gave you something great, your mind. Think about our ancestors and how they overcame the brutality of slavery, of being in bondage. Because I'm telling you something. Roots don't tell the story, honey. Roots tell the cleaned up version of it. Roots don't tell what the doctor did to the slave women to practice on them before he decided what he was going to do to the Caucasian women. So see, Roots don't tell the whole barbaric true story of slavery, and how we as a people, see that comes down in our bloodline. Those were our ancestors. It comes down generation after generation. That comes down. That's our family. That's our bloodline. And here we are, all crisscrossed all over the world now because of the transatlantic slave trade. We all over the world. Who knows who's related to who? See, because that's how we got to start off the conversation. Who how, where you from? We got to make sure we don't know, we don't know one another first, and because of what happened to our ancestors. So see, what's going on down in the inner city is oppression. What you see happening to one another. Because see here, look, this wasn't going on before they discovered the Africans over there in Africa. This wasn't going on with us over there. They was amazed because they found out wasn't no prisons, wasn't no jails, wasn't none of that going on. See, because the people took care of one another. The kings were taking care of their people. See, so, this was not going on. I don't care what these history books tell you over here. See, because who does the history benefit? Who wrote the history? Okay, so see, you got to think now. Your history goes further back than this country. See, we were born in this country, but you got to remember we are not from this country. And where you were born there, but you are not from there. Your people are from Africa. We are descendants of royalty. And remember, kings and queens, nothing defeats royalty. Nothing defeats royalty. No one is superior over you. Greatness reached over oppression through wisdom all over the world. God bless you.